My name is Farazira binti Hisham Mudin and my metric number is 272823. In this video, I will share to all of you about the response of Islamic financial service to the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 is the major health crisis that began in Wuhan, China, and was later declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization (WHO) that has transformed into one of the worst economic crises of all time. The impact of the crisis is visible everywhere in the world, from migrant labor problems in India to an increase in the number of newly unemployed in the United States, and to the shutting down of the industry in the Gulf Cooperation Council. Unfortunately, no country in the world so far can be viewed as a role model for its economic response to the pandemic. The year 2020 started with the fear of diplomatic crisis between the USA and Iran and become packed with unmatched events that create a high level of uncertainty. The major highlight of the economic crisis witnessed by the world within only a few months due to the pandemic. So there is a need for scholars in economics to take a more holistic view of the economic impact that this pandemic is going to create. The sooner the world can estimate the impact, the better prepared it will be to handle the situation during and after the pandemic. The severity of the current pandemic has shaken the economies and policymakers around the world. At the same time, it was observed that following Islamic finance and use of Islamic financial service will prevent such crises and will make the financial system more sustainable. Relying on the intrinsic worth of Islamic finance, we identify few Islamic financial services that can be used during and after the pandemic to minimize the damage it causes. The first Islamic financial system that can be used is MUSHARAKAH. MUSHARAKAH is one of the most popular Islamic financial services used by Islamic financial institutions and banks to finance individuals and organizations. It refers to two or more persons coming together to contribute capital to do business and sharing profits and loss according to agreed terms and conditions. MUSHARAKAH is a very powerful Islamic financial service for expanding welfare and alleviating poverty. MUSHARAKAH can potentially be one of the most effective tools against the economic consequences of COVID-19. It can be used at the fourth stage of COVID-19, which is post-COVID-19 effects. After the pandemic ends and financial experts start analyzing the loss, costs and damage done to individuals and SMEs, then in that period there is a scope for MUSHARAKAH to emerge as the true social finance tools. Islamic banks can enter the MUSHARAKAH contract with the individuals and SMEs by sharing the risk and contributing capital. As we have learned from the global financial crisis, the moral of the investor is bound to be low during crisis and during this time, and they need someone to share risk with them. The second Islamic financial system that can be used is MUDARABAH. MUDARABAH is considered by both ancient and contemporary Islamic finance scholars to be one of the most popular and authentic modes of the Islamic financial service. In the case of MUDARABAH, a party who is a contributor of the capital is known as Rabbul Mal, and the other party who manages the business of the MUDARABAH contract is known as Mudarib. MUDARABAH can potentially be one of the most effective financing tools to finance COVID-19 affected individuals and SMEs. The income distribution in our society is already highly unequal. Those who are rich are very rich and those who are poor are very poor. And COVID-19 is going to widen the gap between the rich and poor. there is a need to develop an Islamic finance model that can use the MUDARABAH contract and help in reducing the gap by mobilizing the resources from the rich and helping the poor and skilled people to start their own business. As millions of people have already lost their jobs and many others are expected to lose their livelihoods during COVID-19, they can begin another lease on life by entering into a MUDARABAH contract with those who have the money as well as intention of a welfare of the mass. MUDARABAH can best be utilized at the fourth stage of the COVID-19. The third Islamic financial system that can be used is MURABAHA. MURABAHA is basically the contract of sale in Islamic finance and is not a financing method. In the case of MURABAHA sale, the transaction is done on a cost-plus basis. Islamic finance make a clear distinction between a normal sale and Islamic sales. A sale is defined in Islamic finance as exchange of goods between parties with a mutual agreement. MURABAHA contracts can potentially be an effective tool in Islamic finance to fight the economic consequence of COVID-19. A MURABAHA contract like BPA MURABAHA, which is by vitamin Yazid, can help in financing COVID-19 affected individuals and SMEs. BPA MURABAHA is a type of sale in Islamic finance like personal finance or auto finance in conventional finance, with the only difference being that in the case of BPA MURABAHA, goods financed by the bank or financiers are owned by the bank. COVID-19 affected individuals and SMEs will have liquidity problems, and consequently they would require a financing tool such as MURABAHA to meet their financing needs. The fourth Islamic financial system that can be used is IJARAH. IJARAH means giving something to someone for a fee, rent or fare. IJARAH is a Sharia-compliant version of a lease in conventional finance. IJARAH means granting someone the right to use a property for a fee, rent or fare. IJARAH can be used in two ways. First is it is used when one employs a person's service with a fee. The second type is related to the usage of the asset and properties for a fee of payment. The recent development in Islamic finance has made Islamic financial service like IJARAH be a potential warrior against the crisis. The change have caused the demand for IJARAH contracts to increase. There is a need to develop user-friendly IJARAH contracts to suit the needs of the COVID-19 affected individuals and organizations. Islamic banks should provide IJARAH agreement based on the needs of the individuals and SMEs. IJARAH is the best suited Islamic finance tool at the stage 3 and 4 of COVID-19. The last Islamic financial system that can be used during and after the pandemic that I will share with all of you is Salam. Salam, along with the istisna, is the exception of the contract of sale in Islamic finance. As explained earlier during the discussion in MURABAHA, in order to become a valid sale, it must satisfy the three basic conditions of a sale. The Salam contract violates this principle as it is a sale where a seller agrees to sell a certain commodity at a certain date at which is non-existent, and for this seller receive the payment in the full at the time of agreement. Agriculture is the sector worst affected by COVID-19. Salam contract, which is farmer-friendly, can be a lease on life for already dying farmers. Salam is a much needed contract for our farmers, and it must be used extensively by Islamic banks and government to fulfill the financing needs of the farmers. COVID-19 affected farmers can enter into an agreement to obtain essential capital and supply the goods whenever they are available for delivery. It will help them injecting much needed liquidity in the agriculture sector. Based on what I already shared with all of you, we can see that pandemic COVID-19 really hit all of us, no matter who we are, in so many different ways, especially in the economic sector. In Islamic financial service, there's a lot of service that may help the economy to recovery. you.